some people think that philosophy and literature really try to accomplish the same end, which is really a communication of abstract ideas. Now, philosophy tries to do this through direct statement of those ideas in usually a monograph or an essay format, while literature will try to communicate a similar set of ideas through narrative, characters, and theme. Now, I happen to believe this is true, and today I want to talk to you about how one of my favorite works of philosophy, Plato's Republic, inspired three of the most important stories in Western history. Stick around. So before we start, we should talk about a few different ideas from Plato's Republic. All right, there are four total. They're going to be relevant to the stories that I'm going to discuss with you today. The first is the allegory of the cave. Now, if you haven't heard about this, you haven't heard about philosophy. The allegory of the cave is basically a metaphor for the discovery of a deeper truth outside of the surface level experience of reality. In the allegory of the cave, Socrates describes a group of people being held in a cave against their will. They're being held with shackles against a wall. And behind them, there is fire, okay? And that fire projects light in front of them. And that light, well, there are shadows that are cast by the light. And the prisoners in the cave mistake those shadows for real things. It is until one day, one of the prisoners manages to escape. And when that prisoner escapes, he finds his way to the surface. And when he finds his way to the surface, he discovers real things, of which the shadows are imitations. And then he sees the sun itself, which is the source of life and everything good outside of the cave. And from there, after this greater realization, he has to go back down into the cave and try to inform the other prisoners about what he found there. But they don't want to hear it. They don't believe him. They think he's crazy. And Plato, through the character of Socrates, actually believes that this is the task of every true philosopher. Right? That's the allegory of the cave. There's tons of information about that online if you want to check it out. The second idea that we have to discuss here is the tripartite soul. Now, I've discussed this in a couple of videos already, but essentially, Plato believes the soul breaks down into these three distinct parts. There is the calculating part, the desiring part, and the spirited or the emotional part. And Plato believes that in a just person, the calculating part rules the spirit and the desires. So instead of just doing or going after what you want all the time and just acting on your feelings, he thinks we have to temper that with our rational faculties. All right. Third idea is the philosopher king. Now, in the Republic, Plato argues that the ideal ruler for a society is the person who is the most knowledgeable, the person who wants to learn just because they love learning. He thinks that person is going to have a better idea of what the good itself is and is going to be better able to lead a group of people toward the good. Fair enough. And finally, the idea of the noble lie. Now, for Plato, he thinks an ideal society can really only exist under the circumstances of some kind of lie. Now, this lie would be absolutely ridiculous to us today. The one he describes in the Republic is essentially that people are born with different kinds of metal within their souls, and that determines their rank in society. So the highest level people have gold in their souls, and the next highest have silver and bronze and copper. And that's really just a part of it. But these ideas, as we'll see, have been taken to represent different settings, characters, narratives, and a few of society's most beloved stories. Let's check it out. So in our first entry, we have The Lord of the Rings. Now, essentially the whole trilogy, okay? But As I discussed in, I believe it was the book 2 of Plato's Republic video series, he talks about the allegory, the Ring of Gyges, which is just a direct inspiration for the Lord of the Rings. So in this story, Socrates describes a farmer named Gyges who finds a ring on a corpse, and he takes that ring. Now, when he discovers that he takes the ring and he turns it so that the jewel faces inward, he becomes invisible. Now, it isn't Socrates arguing this point. It's another character in the story who's arguing that this kind of power is too much for anybody. With essentially unlimited power, anybody will become corrupted. And he says that Gyges, great guy, before he found the ring, after he finds the ring, he would probably choose to murder the most important people in his town and take over some stuff.
Why? Because it's my birthday and I want it.
Like the Ring of Gyges. Second, we have Gandalf as a philosopher king. So Gandalf rejects the ring, right? Because he understands that it has this corrupting influence that takes over his rational faculty and instead just encourages the desires to take over and to lead the rest of the soul. Now, Gandalf is extremely wise, right? Essentially implying that the rational faculty in his mind is the one that rules at all times. And it's only through that, through the proper utilization of his tripartite soul, that he's able to fight against or resist the temptation of the ring.
Take it, Gandalf. Take it.
No, Frodo.
You must take it.
You cannot offer me this ring.
I'm giving it to you.
Don't tempt me, Frodo. I dare not take it. Not even to keep it safe.
Second, we have Brave New World. Now, this was originally a novel. It did have a movie adaptation. So Brave New World is a dystopian novel written by Aldous Huxley. And in that book, we have an example of the noble lie, but in a technologically advanced society. So in this society, instead of people being born with metal in their souls, as Plato would have the ideal republic believe, people are genetically engineered to have different physical features and different intellectual capabilities. So the very best class, I think they're called alpha pluses or something like that in Brave New World. It's been a while since I read it, but they're really tall, they're very attractive, and they're extremely intelligent, which allows them to do the best and most important and easiest kind of work in their country. They have very little problems. They have all of the fun parties, and it's a very hedonistic society as well, so that grants them a lot of access to life's pleasures. So in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, people are conditioned to pursue pleasures. There's actually this drug that he imagined called soma, and soma is kind of like the perfect drug. It just makes you feel awesome. It's like ecstasy and alcohol all mixed together with none of the hangover or downsides, and people just take it all the time, and they party, and they have as many diverse sexual partners as they want, and they don't have any kind of attachment to their fellow citizens. They're just constantly pursuing pleasure, and that sort of lighthearted, contented feeling that comes with not having to worry about too much. And one of our characters, Bernard Marx, he's kind of the first main character that we have in the novel. There are really two. It's pretty interesting the way the structure of that book works. But Bernard Marx is not content to just chase pleasure all of the time. He wants something deeper. And we get one of the best quotes from the book in there where he says, like, I don't want happiness. I don't want pleasure. I want poetry. I want suffering. I want God. And it's a pretty cool moment in the book where he embraces his full humanity. He wants all of it. He doesn't want just the fun and the sex and the parties and the drugs. He wants to feel the full spectrum. The last story in this list that Plato's Republic really directly influenced, and there are interviews with the characters saying as much, that they were forced to read philosophy in order to even audition for the parts, is The Matrix. Okay? This is the 1999 film directed by the Wachowskis, where all of humanity is basically enslaved to a computer system. Everybody has physical bodies, but nobody exists in the physical world. They're kind of all existing in pods where they're hooked up to like feeding terminals, and their brains are hooked up to these things that send them signals that create this alternate reality for them. It's really it's like a techno dystopia version of the cave itself.
I came to realize the obviousness of the truth. What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world.
Right, and the parallels become obvious here. Instead of prisoners in a cave looking at shadows, these are prisoners in tubes being fed stimulus to their brains. And Neo is woken up one day, and this is where we get the infamous scene.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Of course, Neo chooses the red pill, and of course that has so many more meanings today than it did then, but that is entirely besides the point. The point is to choose questioning reality over a comfortable, familiar existence when evidence for such presents itself. Secondly, Morpheus, who is the character who basically frees Neo from the Matrix, and kind of like mentors him through his awakening process. He's kind of like the philosopher who escaped the cave and came back down and is now freeing Neo, and he freed a bunch of other people, and they're basically a band of people now who are all fighting against the Matrix. But Neo and Morpheus both serve as examples of philosopher kings who seek to understand the Matrix. They're not motivated by a desire to rule over anybody. They're just trying to help other people realize what's going on around them, and to essentially, right, it's like a quest for knowledge and a quest to enlighten others through their greater, because they've acquired greater knowledge, they can help other people also acquire more knowledge. And that makes them both fit to rule. So that is all I have about this. I am so very sure that there are actually more novels, movies, stories, etc. that have been inspired by Plato's Republic. It's one of the foundational texts in all of Western philosophy. And after having read it cover to cover myself, it has been an absolute joy to read, and really helps me understand some of the fundamental literary traditions and ideas that ground so many of the stories that are produced today. So drop this video a like if you liked it. Comment which of these is your favorite. Which is your favorite story that was inspired by Plato's Republic? The Lord of the Rings, Brave New World, or The Matrix? And I will see you next time.